Madam President, you said that a Russian special operation took place here in Georgia. You said there was hybrid warfare, complete falsification, and technology was used. What exactly are you accusing Russia of doing, and what was the ruling party doing, and how are they involved?
I'm accusing the ruling party of having used Russian forms, Russian methods, and probably some type of Russian planning for this really special operation, because what we have seen and that nobody expected, including the local observation missions that are used to different forms of frauds that had been used in this country and in this region. Nobody was expecting what happened, which was very well organized, very sophisticated type of frauds that included all kinds of forms, regular irregularities, intimidation, pressures on the people that are dependent on public service jobs or being on welfare, all of these people. But that we knew, and we have been used in the past also. It has been at certain different times used. But this time there was a mixture with technology, this new electronic equipment.
What exactly was done in terms of technology?
Armenian carousel, what we call here Armenian carousel. I don't know whether they call it Georgian carousel, which means that some time before the elections, they started taking the IDs of people on welfare, of families of prisoners, under different pretexts. And nobody understood why they were doing that, whether it was just pressure. That was the interpretation. And in fact, they have been used for the same person to go and vote, and it could be up to 17 times with one ID and different of these electronic equipments, because they do not cross-reference. So they had in their hands a great number of those ID cards or ID numbers. The commissions were completely dominated by people from the ruling party, named by the Central Electoral Commission. That was the head of the Central Electoral Commission is completely in the hands of the ruling party, like almost all the institutions today in the country.
To be clear, though, that you're not accusing the Russian state of actually carrying.
No, I'm accusing Russian methodology, probably Russian FSB help that was given to the authorities. We've seen that Russian propaganda was directly used. Last week we had a video that pre-electoral video from the ruling party that was the exact duplicate of a Russian video that was used during Putin's campaign. The posters on Ukraine war and Georgian happiness that I don't know whether they're still on the streets, but which shocked half of the population, were also used. We are seeing this type of hybrid pressure on Georgia. The psychological elements were also there that show very clearly, and nobody knows better the Georgian psychology than the ex-Russian KGB, because they had been working for decades on that. So that's everything was used, including if you take the diaspora, which is 1 million today, and those people this time, unlike precedent elections, wanted to vote because they felt that it was their future, the European future of the country, and not which party was going to rule in Georgia. And so they tried to register. It was very difficult. Everything was done so they could not register. And only 100,000 of them managed to register. And then they couldn't vote because no new pressings, despite what we started doing 6 months ago, trying to force the Central Electoral Committee, as is in the law, to open new pressings, but they refused bluntly. And in the end, only 30,000 managed to vote, because in very few districts it was completely bugged, and there were long lines outside, and not everybody was able to either find its name on the list or to vote. So for different places, different methods, and all of that managed to really steal the elections, because the result of the elections was given by the exit polls, by Edison Research.
Just on that point very quickly, you've said that the election was stolen, but your American and European partners haven't gone that far. And they've called on the political leaders here, Georgian Dream, to investigate the violations, to respect the rule of law, and to put Georgia back on its European path. You yourself have said that you want active support from the EU and
I
US.
just want to answer on that. It's not for the countries outside to declare that an election was stolen or not stolen. That doesn't happen that way.
Would you like to see the Americans and the Europeans do that?
I think that they have to stay on the line that was a line before the elections. They were saying that there were pressures on the government. These pressures have to accentuate because the request, the demand from our partners was to reject the Russian laws that were adopted before, to hold free and fair elections. That didn't happen. No democracy there. So they have to continue putting these pressures that were before the elections, have to be maintained after the elections. They have to support. If there have to be sanctions, it's up to those partners to decide. But certainly time has not come to renew relations with authorities that are not legitimate at this point.
Earlier this year, there were huge protests in this country. Tbilisi, the streets were full of people protesting against the foreign influence law. But then people went home and Georgian Dream passed the law anyway. Are you concerned that the same thing could happen this time? And do you have a long-term plan to ensure that Georgia actually remains on its European path?
I have the long-term plan that Georgia is going to go back to its European path, and that I think is what the Georgian people are going to say today on the streets. I don't have a political plan because that's up for the political parties to know how they want to carry on. My plan is really that we need to have a firm support of our European partners, of our American partners, to the part of Georgia that is European, that is the Georgian population. The Georgian government is not European, is not pro-European. It is today working hand in hand with Russia, and you should listen to the compliments that they have gotten from the Russian leaders. And that is not only the fate of Georgia, that is a very important geopolitical question that is at issue, that is at hand, because Georgia is determining for the rest of the Caucasus, for the fate of Armenia, for the fate of the Black Sea, and for the fate of the European enlargement, which is today a different type of enlargement. This enlargement is needed for us, very clearly, but it's also needed for Europe, and for Europe, powerful Europe that needs to really be present in those regions, and needs those regions to be stable. And stability we can find only in our proximity and integration into Europe.
Are you concerned, though, that the only leverage that you really maybe have over Georgian Dream at the moment, and to show your European partners, is the fact that you've got protests?
That's the way to show where the population stands. It's not necessarily a leverage, because they are, and they will be very peaceful, because the population here knows what is our geopolitical environment. So that's why it's always very measured and very conscious about maintaining stability. But it's a way that the population can show they have no other way to express that their votes have been stolen, that their future has been stolen, that the future of their children. You're going to see, if nothing changes very quickly, we are going to see very many people leave Georgia, the younger generation, and that is a very big tragedy. But nonetheless, there is a lot of resilience in this country. We have gone through worse and through better. So I'm very confident that the European path that is wanted in this country by 80% of the population will go back to it, one way or the other.
Speaking about the European path, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán is on his way to Tbilisi.
Yes, that's a special friend of the...
Exactly. So Viktor Orbán is on his way here. Are you concerned about him undermining EU unity on Georgia, and how do you view his visit?
I think if he undermines EU unity, it's not only through Georgia. So that's a European issue, not ours. And I think that it is not going to affect what is the deep sense in the Georgian population. Seeing Orban coming and visiting the Prime Minister here is just a political play, but will not change the attitude of the population.
So you don't think it gives a certain legitimacy?
Not really.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We have heard the European Council. I think that we have listened to Charles Michel's declaration yesterday, the tweet, and there will be a European Council in November, and that's where we're going to hear the European voice, not through Mr. Orban.